My friends, welcome back to the OHA, to Pints and Paints, slightly delayed episode of Pints and Paints, which is tending to be the norm these days. But this one was for good reason. We had a pretty epic storm today that swept through and did a number on the hydro system here. So as you can see, we got some juice, so I got filming right away because I wanted to keep my promise to you guys to make sure we got an episode of PNP up this week. So that being said, it's not a pint. It's Orion water, and the only reason for that is the fridge was off, so the beer is not as cold as it should be. So I've had to go back to the old faithful here. So cheers. Here's to another weekend. Here's to Friday. Friggin' rights, boys. Friday. I mean, favorite day of the week. Not only for PNP, but, you're done work. Get out of there. Get some hobby time in. I know I'm looking forward to a big hobby weekend here. My lovely wife is going to be working this weekend, so it's going to leave all kinds of free time for me. And because of the rain and such, it's a little too wet to really be doing anything outside. So I get a little bit of a freebie here, a little bit of a buy, so I'm going to see what I can get done. But here's to you. Cheers. Happy hobbying this weekend. Oh, it's magic. It's so delicious when it hits your lips. It's just... Oh. That's the ticket right there. Right there, guys. So, this week's topic of P&P. It's been interesting because some people have brought to light the fact that it's called Pints and Paints, and yet I'm never, ever painting anything when I talk to you guys. Which is maybe something that I'm going to change. Maybe I'll at least pretend to be working on something when I'm having these discussions with you guys. But all in all, it's really more just a hobby segment, place for me to sort of vent and share my hobby opinions, I guess. So, which leads me sort of into the discussion of the day, I guess we'll call it. Obviously, for those of you who follow SBG on all the social media platforms, you would have seen that the ETC just recently took place. Team England, congratulations, the likes of Jay Clare, Ed Ball, forgive me, I don't know everybody off the top of my head. Mr. Entwistle obviously is involved in that, as well as I think Mr. Sam Jeffries may have had a hand in that somewhere along the line, but don't quote me on that because I don't have a cheat sheet, so I don't know if I'm giving you any real facts here. But anyways, Team England walked away with a win. I believe it was Team England, Team 1 of Team England took first place, and then Team 1 and Team 2 of Poland took second and third. So congratulations to all you guys for, I guess, being the pinnacle of our hobby. It was interesting to see the transition that took place, after the announcements of it and sort of the discussions that stemmed from both the lead up to ETC as well as, sort of the comments that were added on certain posts and certain individuals chiming in with their opinion. Found it quite interesting to read and follow along just to see the varying differences in opinion relating to SBG at a competitive level. Let's be clear about that, at a competitive, best of the best level, which I guess obviously the ETC represents. Obviously Team England came out on top, so nod to them, and clearly at this point they are the finest in all the land. But, it opened up some doors and opened up some interesting conversation about the game itself and how it lends itself to competitive play in general. I know, and I'm sure most of you know, as a member of the OHA, we put theme to the forefront of everything that we do. And there's a number of reasons for that. And I thought that it was a good time, with all the traction and discussion about this going on, to sort of touch on that and discuss, why it is that we like to focus on that, what we see the benefits of that being. That doesn't mean to say that I'm wholeheartedly against competitive play by any means. Obviously, if people want to play to a competitive level at a high stakes, event such as that, I mean, kudos to you. You're a far better player than me, because I don't think I'd be able to invest that kind of, I guess it'd be safe to say, dedication to the game in that way to get to the point where you're doing sort of the things that you see. There was a lot of people making comments about, will we ever see an ETC without axes, and people sort of griping about some of the loopholes that were being used, and it to me it opened up a door to have an interesting conversation with you guys about what we think the meta of the game is going forward, and more specifically for the OHA, why we feel that theme and the scenario play and keeping continuity of the lore in promoting the game and promoting the system and trying to recruit new players. So obviously, for all you that follow the channel, you'll know that is primarily our focus. We have a couple of events that are loosely called competitive, but they're really, someone's got to win. We got to give prizes out, so we try to do that. But it's definitely not the focus of our club or our community at the OHA. We love bringing to life the world of Middle-earth. And I think that the gorgeous models that GW provides us, the terrific game, the system, all those pieces that are in place, really lend itself well to bring Middle-earth to life and to bring it to not only people who love Tolkien and Middle-earth, but also people who maybe necessarily are either on the fence or don't really know about it. It really lends itself well to expanding people's horizons when it comes to the wargaming, I don't want to say industry, but wargaming community. So it's kind of interesting because when I was reading some of the comments with regards to, people's concerns with the ETC and the style of play that's demonstrated and how, ultra competitive the meta is and trying to squeeze out every little tiny bonus that you can while at the same time essentially abandoning theme, which could be argued either way, because I did look at a few lists and saw some of the photographs that were coming out, and there wasn't anything that looked, particularly dirty. Like you take Ed Ball, for example, he was playing, I believe, please forgive me if I'm wrong, but just looking at the pictures, I think he was playing the Flying Circus with Shelob, which, it's pretty themed. It's, in the same vein, I guess. It's not like he was running like a 3-part combo, but you did see some lists that you had, 3 different factions in the one list. And, Dave Nolan, great guy. Got to meet him at Nova. He's really about getting the game to that pinnacle and having, I guess in this case, the European team championship, the finest players in all the land coming together to see who comes out on top. So it was interesting just to see the discussions and what's going on. So, I'd really be interested to hear what your opinion is on what's going on in the hobby as far as the competitive side of things go. I think that as an outsider looking in from Canada, things are so very different in comparison to what goes on in the GBHL. Even in the discussions that we've had with numerous guests and members of the GBHL that we've gotten to know and spend time with, it's 2 very different worlds. You guys are definitely on a sort of plane all onto yourself when compared to the rest of the SBG community. Some of the Yanks come pretty close to that because they invest a lot of time and effort to make it over to some GBHL events or specifically Warhammer World events like the GT or Articon or things of that nature. But I do notice that there's definitely a difference just in the overall approach to the game, and hats off to the GBHL for everything they've done. It's been terrific. They've obviously, breathed life back into this hobby for us. It's arguable whether, you could say that we would be here talking about this as a current and up-to-date game if it wasn't for the GBHL. But for us here in Canada, and I would hazard to say North America in general, but I'm not really sure if I can make this claim unequivocally. I can't talk. I don't know if I can make the claim or not, but I think that it's very different. We are very much geared towards theme in North America. And I think that's dictated, and that's held even true when you look at Nova. Nova only allowing a single ally in the list, which makes things interesting and tries to keep some semblance of theme during the event. So I find it intriguing, the differences. Obviously, I haven't really invested a whole lot of time into looking into Articon and what kind of lists and what kind of things go on there, whether it's very similar to the ETC and people are there to really compete at a high level, which would, in theory, abandon theme. But at the same time, as I said, this is a discussion. I find it interesting that you can look back and see some key wins at some really interesting events that were done with pure lists. So the one that comes to mind would be Mr. Hickson and his Gondor winning the GT, I believe it was. I could be wrong. Correct me if I am down below. But I just find it interesting to see the differences in the meta and the play style and the focus, really. Obviously, SBG in the UK does not need as much, I'd almost hazard to say, help in recruiting and getting players. You've got a strong, solid player base. You've got very dense population, so everybody that plays is relatively close. You've got a very robust community, whereas here in Canada, we're not that fortunate. So we really have to sell the game. And in order to sell the game, for us at least, in our opinion, it's theme, hands down. So if you can tell somebody that they can come and play and reenact, whether it's a scene from the movie or a page from the book, whatever the case is, it really drives that interest. And I know that we've benefited greatly from keeping that focus and pushing forward and doing what we do based on theme and based on keeping things relatively simple, straightforward, and fun. Not to say that any of that, the GBHL or ETC or any of that stuff is not fun. I'm sure, you can just see it looking at the page. It's just a very different approach because of the differences in our two communities. So, it's really interesting to me because I'm newer to the Facebook platform and stuff like that. So seeing the interactions, seeing the differences in the groups, the nuances of each group, it's really interesting to me to see how alike we are, but at the same time how different we really are. And I think it lends itself well, when we're able to sit down and have a couple pints together and we're talking about things, whether it's Dan or Sam or, even for that matter, the likes of Damien or whatever, those conversations, there's two very different perspectives that take place. And, I think it's awesome. I think it's really what adds to the fabric of this terrific community. But for sure, I would say that there's very different approaches when it comes to the game on either side of the pond. So it's going to be interesting to see what the rules do going forward. If you're looking at sort of what the direction GW is going to take, whether they're going to, stick with the army bonus idea, which I would hazard to say they are, where it's going to sort of put theme back into the forefront. It's going to be interesting to see what happens at these, ultra competitive events, where you're battling it out for the honor of saying that, your country is the best country in the SBG universe, which is, quite a title to have. So I'm really interested to see where it goes. I'm interested to see what you guys have to say. Interested to see where the changes are going to take the game, and more importantly, take the meta relating to competitive play. It's really going to be quite interesting. So I know I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to following along. Obviously the GBHL blazes the way for the rest of us, which is amazing. So it's going to be interesting to see how that changes over time, and then what parts of that the North American scene sort of pulls from, what pieces we take, what pieces we don't, the differences in the play style. And I know, personally speaking, I'm looking forward to, not this year, but next year, hopefully, as long as Devin does it, getting back to Nova and hopefully getting to play some European players. I was fortunate enough this past year that I played a fellow from Ireland, and he was awesome. He was a way better player than I was, and it was a blast. I learned a lot. It was amazing how much I was able to learn in that sort of competitive environment, but it was great fun. So I know I would love to have the opportunity to play some Brits Europeans for that matter, in a game like that, just as a learning experience and to see the differences in the play style, So obviously here in Canada, our player base is so small that you only see so many tricks so many times, essentially, is the best way to put it, As a smaller group, I play the same guys, over and over. So, whether you're playing the same armies or learning the tricks, or, if you're trying to practice with an army for an event, and you're facing the same stuff over and over again, it's hard to adapt. It's hard to come up with a strategy. It's hard to see the nuances of each force. Whereas in an international event, such as Nova, such as Articon, such as, pick one, having that international flavor and having all those metas come together, I think is really an awesome learning opportunity for any newer player, or even experienced player within their local gaming community, whether you're talking Americans, Canadians, whatever. So I think it's all awesome. It's all great stuff to learn from. And I know I would love to hear, sort of a tactics talk, I guess, from, even if it was Team England or even for that matter, Team Poland, to have those guys come forward and just sort of talk a little bit about their games, talk about, their thoughts and what they did during the game that, maybe made or break a situation. It's awesome. I know at Nova we had the opportunity to listen to some tactics talks from Sam and Dan, as well as Dave Nolan himself was, very kind enough to put on a little seminar about being a high caliber player, and those are all things that you can draw from to help improve your game. So for people who are new to the channel or who are new to the hobby, it's an excellent opportunity to sort of pick up on some of the nuances without having to learn the hard way, and getting your butt kicked. So, the better prepared you can be for a game, obviously the better you're going to fare. So it'd be really great to hear some input and to get some responses back on, the metas that were used and the direction that was taken for those events. I'm sure Jay Clare is going to be kind enough to post something up on maybe the Warhammer community about the ETC, and maybe we'll get some in-depth discussion, something that we can read to talk about that. But it's very impressive. It's impressive stuff. It's an impressive title to have. I mean, they're the pinnacle of SBG players in the world, and everybody else sort of is striving to measure up against them. I know that some of the Yanks have given them a run for the money, and I know that there's been some Canadians at the likes of Articon that have definitely given them a run for their money. So it's going to be interesting. I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see where the meta's going. And, that's all I have to say about that. I need a drink. Talking to you guys is very thirsty work. Local events, local things going on. George posted up some stuff on the Scouring of the West Farthing, which will be coming up in late September this year. That is our convention down here in Chatham at the wonderful Retro Suites. George has some treats in store for you guys. He is working on some boards that, I know it goes without saying, are going to be stunning. So interested to see what he does there. Derek over at the OSBGL just completed his Council of the Wise. I think we touched on that last week or previous week or earlier in the week, one or the other. I talked about it somewhere, I think. Yeah, I did. Oh boy, so thirsty. That being said, Derek, the cowboy that he is going to be hosting another event in May. I believe it's on the 26th. Middle Earth's Deadliest Heroes, 1,000 points. I guess it's kind of like a practice run for Nova, which is awesome. I am working on my schedule to see if I can maybe attend that event, throw some support behind Derek. He's a great guy. He's always been a big part of the OHA and been there for us. So want to try to reciprocate. It's just May's tough for me. Springtime around the farm is obviously a very busy time of year. So maybe I'll get lucky, get caught in the rain, and I'll be able to take a rain day. And I can slide up and, show you guys how not to play 1,000 points of heroes. But, no, looking forward to it. We got some planning going on for Bog. I've been working on that. Bog, as I said in a previous video, is going to be a little different this year. It's going to be sort of an invitational. So I'm excited for some of the plans that are coming together for that. Trying to keep it fun and light. Want to have a great time socializing and really take the opportunity, I think, to try to bring together a lot of the existing and new OHA guys that'll be coming on board. So we can sort of come together almost in sort of a meeting style, obviously very casual, and hash some stuff out, figure out direction, what we want to do, sort of what we want to throw our weight behind moving forward. So excited to see where that goes and what comes of that. So that's all I got for Pints and Paints this week. I'm looking forward to moving forward. Like I said, this weekend I got a little bit of hobby time, so I think there's a Mumac that has my name on it over there that I might start putting a little bit of glue to at the very least. And yeah, just see where it goes from there. I got a couple other projects that are sort of, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through that I could maybe knuckle down and finish, and maybe get a little bit of content up for the channel. I know OHA George has been doing a little bit of talking about the potential of the final piece for the Amon Hen build being filmed and put up. So maybe we'll get lucky and you'll have two OHA, guys cranking out some content over the weekend. And then of course, obviously we got a bunch of other members that are doing lots of hobby and stuff. I know some of the guys are out of town or away on vacation, so haven't heard hide nor tail from them. But when they get back, I'm sure that we're going to have all kinds of great content. So once again, thank you so much for the support. Thanks for joining us here at Pints and Paints on the OHA. And cheers. Happy hobbying. Hope you all have a great weekend. And we'll catch up soon. Cheers, boys.